Hello, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. I'm Sarah, and this is Rachel. And today we get to talk about business, which is just exciting and such a blessing. I am reading this book. It's called Outwitting the Devil. I don't know if anybody's read
Oh,
it out there. And it was written in the 1930s, right after the Great Depression, and it wasn't published until 2011 because he intentionally did not want to publish before his death because he was questioning the entire religious and educational system, and in the 1930s that was not allowed, right? And
yeah.
basically, the bottom line is the way that you outwit the devil is you get your life on purpose. And that is exactly what we're going to talk about today. Like, how do you align your spirit with your way of making a living, right? Because
Yeah.
we spend so much time, 40, sometimes more hours per week, doing something to make money and to be of service and help others. And if that's aligned with your spirit, you're halfway there because you're already on purpose and you've aligned your spiritual purpose with how you make a living. And that's a beautiful thing. So, Rachel and I met through a group. We were taking a class together on like how to do the enrollment process and how to coach clients through the fear that sometimes arises when they want to take that leap of faith to invest in
hmm
themselves and stuff. And I just love her. She's an absolutely amazing copywriter, like beyond description. And you can really feel the love and the heart in the work that she does. And so, without further ado, here it is. Let's talk to Rachel and let her share a little bit. How are you today, Rachel?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me in this group. I just love talking about all this kind of stuff. So this is going to be really good. So I am a copywriter, and I initially got into copywriting with a very like masculine. That's like what copy is, right? Like especially conversion copywriting, where you're writing to sell something. Super masculine, super structured, super formula based, and while I got that and it made sense, it also lacked a lot of things and it didn't always work, right? Like you can follow a formula to the T and maybe you'll sell, maybe you won't. Like, and that whole idea of like, why doesn't it always work drove me crazy and had me asking those hard questions of like, why doesn't it work? What else is at play here that we're missing? And that really came down to like the energy of it, right? And the energy of you, the energy that you're putting into the copy, all of that. And like, how do we understand what's happening there so that we can not control it, but know that like it's working and you can put it out there and feel really good about it. And I think anybody that is an entrepreneur especially in the coaching space, like they want to serve. They want to help people. They want to like make a difference in someone's life. And it all comes down to like your energy and the copy that you're putting out there and all that. So I'm excited about to talk about this. Like I feel like we could talk and go in a million tangents. So, and I'm a manifesting generator, so I will go in a million different tangents. So keep me on course here, Sarah.
So, where would you like to start though? What do you think it's one of the most important things that we need to keep in mind and that we need to know? Maybe we should start there with the human
Yeah,
design and how that affects the
yeah,
kind of career and business that you create.
yeah. So I think the biggest piece is understanding your own intuition, right? And I think we get confused sometimes, or at least I felt like I got confused of when could I really trust my intuition? What even was that? Because I felt like I had a lot of different voices in my head, and a lot of different things. I had gut reactions, but I also had a lot of noise in my head. And, there's a lot of different, like the saying of like, trust your gut. But then there's also, the voice, you have like the two different people on your shoulders idea too, of like, you have the angel and the devil, or, And I just didn't quite understand like how to trust my own intuition until I found human design, and it was playing through that. So my authority, which is your authority, is how you make decisions, or how you should be making decisions. And for me, it's through the sacral, which is a very gut or And when I thought back to my like life and looking at different decisions, like I always had that. It was always a like or like
So
and when
is
I
there okay, so I don't understand. So you're a manifesting generator and you make decisions from the sacral chakra, which is pleasure and like what about everyone else? Like how does that relate? I didn't even know.
Yeah, so there's other authorities and ways of making decisions, like emotional solar plex. So from that chakra of the emotional, and you're going to ride more of a wave, and the wave can kind of present in different ways, but essentially you'll get an initial reaction, but it's not always necessarily the correct decision. So you kind of have to wait it out and look at it from lots of different perspectives.
So who tends to make decisions from their solar plexus? Generators or?
Generators, MGs as well, projectors. If you have a defined sacral, you'll be sacral authority. But if it's undefined, then you're probably going to be solar plex. You could also be ego, that one. And you could also be, I always forget the name of it on the other side of the spleen. Why that word escapes me every time. You can also be splenic, which is very similar to sacral, and then it will have almost like a primal response of yes or no. But it'll only do it once. It will only be a very quick flash, and then it's gone. And so you have to be really in tune to that sacral, or that response.
So what are you supposed to do to manage these impulses, or should we even be trying to manage them? Like I'm like that. Just this morning I was working, I was resting, and then I had 2 ideas of exactly where to go, and I just follow them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes they pin out, sometimes they don't pin out. But how do you know?
It's I can't. You're a manifest. I cannot remember.
I'm a generator.
You're a generator. That's right. Okay. So it's about following joy, right? It's about following that. Like if you get a yes, and as a generator, like you're waiting to respond to the world. So everything in your world is something you can respond to. It can be a question. It can be just like a thought. The tricky part is with thoughts, and this is something I've discovered as an MG as well, is that you get a lot of downloads and a lot of ideas, and you're like, "Ooh, yay, that would be fun." But it's better to kind of ask the universe to be like, "This sounds like a really fun thing. Give me something to respond to like you want it to show up in your environment in some way. Like somebody asked you a question about, hey, would you do this? And it had to do with the download, right? If that makes sense. Like asking if you get an idea that you're really excited about, wait until something in your environment comes up for you to respond. And if you're still getting that sacral yes, or that emotional roller coaster yes, then go ahead and go move forward with it.
What about like how you work, right? Because when you're creating a business or you're creating a career, yes, you have to know how to follow your intuition and how to respond and whether to act on that intuition immediately or not. But then based on this human design, there's also like you work better in teams, or you work better alone, or you work better following, or you work better leading. Like when we're trying to create a career, a business, or something to serve, what would be your advice to, let's say, manifesting generators or generators? Like, how do they work better?
So, and maybe I'll just go through each type and kind of the idea behind each one. So a manifestor is very like big aura. They're big ideas. They're here to bring ideas. Their energy works in waves. Like they'll have a burst of energy, and then they'll need to be kind of quiet and more and re-energized. So something that allows them, entrepreneurship, coaching, that allows them to bring this big idea that they have, this big idea that it really excites them to people. Manifestors and manifesting generators are more about like the process. What are you excited about? How do you see things working? So how do you solve a problem with this unique process, and honing in on that process? The thing with MGs is, the other thing is, don't get locked. Allowing yourself to pivot is key, because MGs are kind of all over the place and they're very erratic, and do a lot of different things all at one time. So yes, honing a process, but allowing yourself to pivot when you feel called to pivot. And you'll know, like I pivot all the time, almost to the point of like, when will I stop pivoting? But that's just part of the process. It's every single pivot has honed the process even more and gotten me closer and closer to what I am being called to do.
That
right?
makes a lot of sense, right? So let me see if I can understand and kind of just recap. Manifesting generators go in all sorts of different directions. That's their nature. That's okay. And therefore, they should be able to just kind of follow, but always keep the flexibility to pivot. If they get stuck in one path, then they energy will stop flowing almost. It's like what I picture. Like they get blocked.
Yeah. And
what about like generators? How do we work?
So generators, you definitely still need to be excited about what you're doing. But again, honing that process of the unique way of you doing things is really important. So honing in on that, making sure that you're really excited about it, but mastering it, right? Like going really deep. And
so mastering the process or mastering...
Yeah.
Huh, that's interesting, because I am a process girl. Like I need to know there has to be a flow, otherwise I get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And like I absolutely love like designing how things are gonna work, and I absolutely love a well-oiled machine that just kind of goes.
Yeah. So really honing in on that and showing people how you've mastered that process and how you are you've spent, and you do, I think you show this really well in what you do. You're like, I've done this for 20 years and this is how I really mastered what I'm doing. And that's all about the process that you take your clients through. Yeah,
that is very true. I never thought of it that way. It's just what I do, but you're absolutely right. Like the 90-day program that I have, it's all about that. It's what I wish somebody taught me in one setting over 20 years and made it so simple that I could actually put it into action and practice it instead of all of these bits and pieces. I never thought about that. You're absolutely right. That is.
So you're intuitively done it all on your own.
Yeah.
And projectors are really about, so they have to kind of wait for an invitation. And I think people get a little confused on that. Like they're waiting for somebody to say, I invite you to this. But the idea is that you're still follow your bliss, still follow what excites you, and really dive into the way that you see it. Projectors see things really uniquely, and really, they see things the way other people don't. So they can see a system that could work to solve a problem that no one else sees, and that is their gift. So finding that system that they are excited about, and then really honing it and mastering it again, but allowing, so the more that they dive in and master and show that they're authority, the more people will recognize them for that and invite them to share. Right. And a big thing for projectors is really asking the question to their audience of like, can I share this with you? Are you open to this? And really asking them almost for permission so that they don't come across as like, I know the answer and here it is, but more of like, I have this answer. Do you want to know more? I have a way to solve this problem. Would you want to solve it?
Okay, so far we've been talking a little bit about how to follow your intuition to create your business, and how do you know what's right, and how to manage the gut feelings that come to you and the insights that come to you. And then we talked about how we actually put that into action. So, manifestor generators need to pivot, and generators like me need that specific system and a specific path. and projectors need to be way. What about advertising? What about marketing? What about the copy part of it? Like, I've seen you post on your group, and by the way, I put Rachel's link to her website on the description here. From there, they can access your group, I would imagine, from your website.
Yeah, they can. It's probably the roundabout way to do it.
So put it on the comments below your group, so people can go over to your group.
Yeah.
So when we're writing copy, how does this apply?
Yeah. So copy is really infusing your energy, your aura into the copy. So manifestors, keeping it really big picture and bold statements, like that's what their aura is. It's just kind of this bold, a little bit, it's not a turnoff, but you're either polarizing people or you're drawing them to you. Like there's that push and pull, and that's exactly what they are meant to do. Is they're going to magnetize the people that are ready for their message, and they're going to turn away the people that aren't ready. And so it's really in those bold statements of like, this is the vision, this is where I'm taking you. It's like, get on the train or not, whatever, I'm going. You coming with me?
Okay.
MGs, and even generators are really going out and like asking the audience, asking your people, like, what do you want to learn more? Oh my gosh, once I started to like really use, not use, that's a bad word. But going into my audience and asking them more questions about like, what are you curious about? What do you want to know more about? What about this idea? And using what excites me and what brings me joy, but then asking and allowing the environment to bring me a response, something to respond to. So asking a lot of questions and really bringing them into the process with you.
Okay.
So showing your mastery within that. Projectors are really, you want to know that or allow your audience to feel seen. Projectors never, or a lot of times will not feel seen. They feel like they're just like over here going, hey guys, and no one's paying attention. So allowing you need to go in and say, I see you, I feel you, using those words like that. I see you, I feel you, I understand what you're going through. Seek to understand your audience and they will understand you. So.
And what about generators? How do we work?
Kind of the same way, like again, going out as a MG, like talking about your process and why you've mastered it, why it works when other things don't, really showing your authority in that process and why it's like your.
So I've been playing with that, and that's come naturally to me because I guess maybe that's what I look for when I'm looking for something to learn or something to buy or a program to sign up for. I'm like, okay, explain to me exactly what you're gonna do, how you're gonna do it, and why is this different than everything else I've tried.
Exactly.
Right? And so then that's what I present. But then sometimes I feel like I'm missing that part that I come across like very direct or very dry in what I have to present, because I am all about the system. I am all about the path, right? So how do you balance that? Because we all have our tendencies. You know, I could totally see a projector asking, and maybe not necessarily leading because they just get caught up asking, just like I get caught up teaching.
Yeah. Well, it's creating that conversation, right? Especially as a generator, going in and creating that conversation with people, leading them through and asking those questions along the way of, you know, is this resonating with you? Is this like asking the questions that allow people to respond to, because the majority of the population has to respond in some way. So asking those questions that give them a yes or no of, especially in calls to action. I see so many calls in, like, just click the button. Like, that's not, it's not going to draw me in. It's not going to make me want to click. Like, give me like, are you ready to, you know, rise up out of the ashes or whatever? Like, make it like something I'm going to respond to. Like, if you're not responding to it, no one else is going to respond to it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So this is about how we use how we follow our intuition depending on our design in order to figure out what kind of business we need to be creating. And then we talked about how we go about it and the different like Some of us are methodical, some of us need to pivot. And now we're talking about how to talk to our audiences based on our design to get, because I have to tell you, this is all new to me. Like, I have been online since July, really. That's when I decided that I was going to try. So July, August, September, October, November, 5 months. And, before I had a little brick and mortar studio, I had a Google listing, and then people just came to me, and it was no problem. And then in July, I started to try and do this online thing, and I'm learning. This is all new to me about like marketing. Like, there's a science behind it. There's a way to speak to people. And it's been a journey about trying to find my voice, because we have so many people that are guiding us in this direction and the other direction, and do it this way and do it that way. And I'm like, I don't know. Some of it feels right, some of it doesn't. I've tried some works, some doesn't. And at the end of the day, it came down to, what am I aligned with, right? Like, what feels right to me? And I think that that's what's really special about how you work. The fact that you don't have a method. You're like, okay, let me see you, hear you, and then speak for you in a certain way that resonates with who you are really, not necessarily the one method. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you got there and what's different about, again, the generator and me would like to know what's different about and how you systematically get there.
Well, I don't know how you're recapping, because that's not in me either. I'm just like, are we going? Okay, bye. Okay. So I started in the masculine training of like the formulas of copywriting, persuasion tactics, the words to use, like all of that, like more tactile things, right? Like, what call to action should you have? Like, what is the formula to getting people to buy things? And while that kind of worked, it never set right. Like, it never made me feel good. I loved learning about it, but I didn't love doing it. And so I pivoted and was like, no, there's got to be a different way. And again, I was like, okay, we need to bring in more of who we are. We need to bring in more intuition. We need to bring more of that feminine flow to this masculine strategy. And so that was like January of last year, or January of this year, actually, of 2020. And I was like, okay, this is how I write copy. I really want to know who you are. I really want to know where your intuition is guiding you, and what are you wanting to offer? Like that, using intuition, and then using the persuasion tactics and the copywriting stuff to help you really clarify it, right? Or make sure that we're speaking to our audience in the words that they're using and things like that. And that worked, but it still was like, still not there. And I could feel it, right? Like, it felt really good, but then at some point, probably 6 months in, it felt like, no, there's something else here. And it's so interesting to me the more I like get into my own human design, of when I know a pivot's coming. And I was feeling that pivot. I was feeling like I had some offers that went one offer that did not do anything. And then I had an offer that did like really a lot and did really, really well. And then I didn't want to do it anymore. Like, I literally lost the zest for it. Yeah. I'm like, oh, that was so frustrating, which is the non-self theme of AMG, is frustration. I had this thing work. Why don't I feel lit up about it? And I did offer it again, and I didn't do as well.
Because your energy's not behind it.
Yes. And so I was like, but learned in the process of like, no, don't do something you're not lit up about.
Yeah, let's stop there for a second. I really want to talk about that, because at the end of the day, this book I'm reading, I am loving this book. Some people say it's out there, and I don't think so at all. I'm like, well, then I guess I'm out there then. And that's all right.
You're so rude, Sarah. I love it.
So it was talking about how it is so much more important to have passion and purpose than a plan per se, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean you don't have a plan. It just means is your heart behind what it is that you're decided you're gonna go and do, and are you fiercely focused and driven into getting there? And if you do this, because sometimes I look at myself and I'm like, I have tried so many things over the last 6 months, and I have learned, honestly, I've learned what works, I've learned what doesn't, I've learned what I like, and I've learned what I don't like. I've learned what's aligned with me, and I've learned what's not aligned with me. And I see that a lot of the mistakes that I made was I was new, I didn't know what I was doing, so I was following even when it didn't resonate with you. And guess what's gonna happen? It's gonna flop. Of course it's gonna flop, because your heart is not behind it. Now, I still learned the lessons, I still learned about myself, I still learned the parts that I did like about this approach or whatever. And then, like this morning, and I've had in the back of my head something that I've been wanting to do, and then this morning I'm scrolling and I'm like, that's it, that's where I want to go. And I'm like, Sarah, not again. Really? Another direction, yet another direction. But I'm fired up about it, right? Which is what counts. Like, that's the most important thing. Whether it's like, nothing really matters if it's not aligned with your soul, or if it doesn't feel right to the core, all the way through.
Yeah. And you were doing all these things, and they were giving you something to respond to, right? You were getting that yes or the no, and so it was all allowing you to figure out what worked and what didn't, because you don't know until you have something to respond to.
And not only what works and what didn't, what I like and what I don't like.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because like you said, you had an offer that you liked, you did great while you liked it, and once you stopped liking it, it didn't do well. Right? Because your energy wasn't completely aligned with whatever it is that you were offering. And I've kind of gone through the same process of, by discovering what I don't like, what I'm discovering is what I do want, and what I want to experience as a practitioner, which is going to create real transformation in my students, because to me that's the ultimate goal. Right?
Exactly.
So what is it that feels right to you, not what everybody else is telling you to do?
Yeah. And I think, so another thing that really blew my mind with human design when I learned it was, if your head chakra and your anya are open, meaning they're uncolored, means you're going to have a lot of head talk, a lot of crap in your head. As soon as you, like, I'll have a sacral response, yes or no, and then immediately my head starts talking about, like, why it's not possible, or why, what, you're an idiot, or whatever. Like, all of the, like, fears and all of that stuff comes up because it's open and it's just looking for something to grab onto. So allowing, like, oh, okay, that's just my open head talking away to me.
Or
that's
fear.
Totally fine.
I think sometimes it could be just a little bit of fear of people being afraid to, step into what it is. I sometimes have people who come to me, it's like, well, I want to do this, but I'm going to wait like 6 months or 9 months. And I'm like, that stalling is an excuse to keep yourself where you are, because you're afraid to move forward, right? So there's a difference. You can allow the head talk to talk, but you still have to have the mastery to let it do what it does. I had a student the other day who says to me, it just talked until they had nothing more to say. And I'm like, good. Like, you still have to listen to yourself. You still have to listen to the head talk, but you have to keep that seed of consciousness of knowing exactly what's happening and why it's happening, and then being in charge, not letting it drive you the wrong way. And being more of the observer. That's what really helps me separate myself from all that time. Just like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's an interesting thought. Oh, thanks for sharing that really shitty thought. Right? And just, and that allowed me still to stay within my own power and my own intuition of, like, no, I know this is right, and I don't have to know the how. That's okay. I don't have to know that how. We did go off tangent, but I'm really good at keeping off track. So you were sharing, this came up because you said, you were discovering the process of how you got to what you're doing now, which will probably change 3 years from now again, right? But
for sure.
And you were saying that you had tried some things, and then you found something that felt aligned. That's where we stopped, and then we went off this tangent about the importance of being aligned. So then finish the thought about, okay, what is happening now that you feel aligned?
So I pivoted again. I could feel that pivot coming like last August, and actually I was resisting it and had like the universe give me a shitload of signs that I needed to stop. And so I stopped and regrouped and hired a business coach. And she was like, "Why aren't you doing human design stuff?" And I was like, "I don't know." I don't know. I guess I should. And then again, like she was able to give me something to respond to. And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I should. And created a Facebook group and started putting things out there. And it's again for people to respond or to answer questions and like, is this something you're interested in? And lo and behold, it is. And it's like I think it's the most aligned that I've ever been. It's the most excited I have ever been about what I'm doing. And like I know that it can always continue to be more aligned and it will continue to pivot here and there. But this is the most like excited and aligned I have ever been.
It sounds like what happened is human design gave you a structure to put that intuition, feminine part that you were trying to put in, but now you actually have like a matrix as of why it needs to be done this way and how. And so then that actually just gives you an effortless way to connecting with, once you figure out what their design is, then you know exactly how to help them based on where they are.
Because I was relying prior to that on people having a really solid connection with their intuition, which not everyone does, right? And they can be in. You laugh. Because not everyone does, but they think that they're maybe intuitive or not. They feel like that this is the aligned thing and the thing that excites them, but really it was just something they saw somebody be really successful. I mean, I've done this too. You see someone be really successful selling something or doing something, and so you're like, oh, well, I can do that too. I'm going to do that. And then they go and try and create that. You think that it's aligned, right? Because you got really excited. You're like, I can do this. But in all actuality, it's just you projecting something that you saw.
Trying to be somebody you're not.
And human design gave me a way to figure out who I was, what my voice was, what direction I needed to be going, because there's like the incarnation cross and like what your life's purpose is. Like there's so much in your chart. And it really gave me a place of like, oh, this is where I'm going. That makes so much sense. The gifts that I have, I didn't see. I'm sure other people saw them in me, but I didn't see them until I saw it in the chart. I'm like, oh, that really is something I'm really good at. And I can totally use that in my work. It really did give me the framework to be able to look at people and go, this is really what you're good at. And usually they're like, oh, I never thought of that.
And that is so true, right? And then because the chart, it's not that because the chart says so, it's because you can see it in a chart, I guess.
Like it's again, like it's all with a grain of salt. You still have to take what resonates and leave the rest. But every single person's been like, oh, that makes so much sense to me. Okay,
and it makes so much sense on so many things, because I don't have that problem that you talk about where I see somebody else do something and I'm gonna do it their way, or I'm gonna do whatever.
Maybe that's an MG thing.
I am like the complete opposite, and sometimes my coaches and my teachers have a little bit of a hard time with me because I'm stubborn. It has to feel right for me. I'm not gonna do something just because you're doing it. Good for you. Works for you. I'm like genuinely happy for everyone. And that is one of the things that I do for my students too. Like I need them to be them, and I need them to do what feels right for them. And it's a gift to be able to do that for someone. And I think human design gives you that matrix to follow, to guide someone. And it might be true for them or it might not, but a lot of the time it is. And they just didn't realize it. So to have it explained to them almost, it's very, very helpful. All right, let's start to wrap up here. What else do you think we need to know? How do people get in touch with you? What are your programs nowadays that you're offering in case anyone watching is interested in working with you?
Yeah, so definitely hop into the group. We'll put the link because that's basically where all of my content lives. It's the best way to get responses from me is in that group. Right now, I'm working one-on-one with clients and really deep diving into what their message is, based in human design. So we're figuring out who you are, what do you want to offer, and then how to clearly communicate that to ideal clients. So we walk through how, what your message is, your copy, your content strategy, all those like nitty-gritty things. And then I'm also right now creating DIY guides to each of the energy types. MGs are done, but I'm still working on all the others, and those are going to be available just as like a download for
Do
a
you
small piece.
have a waiting list for that? Like, I love to get myself on the waiting list for whenever you roll that out. So
I don't, but if you're in a group, like I basically announce everything in there. So if you're in a group, you'll get notified when those are available. My goal is to have them all done in the next month, and have them all like there and available for people to download.
yeah. So one of the things that I do is I have a mentorship program for, holistic and nutritionists and practitioners who are trying to create their business, because especially sometimes I think in my field of wellness and spirituality, a lot of students that I've worked with don't necessarily have the business like mentality to actually
Totally.
like have the systems in place that you need to have, so you have a constant stream of like calls and clients coming in, so you don't have to worry about chasing anybody. You just go work with the clients that come to you when they're ready for you, right? And so I always, whenever I see something like that, I'm like, okay, where's your waiting list? Because you should, like, from the business perspective, from the systematic perspective, I'm like, okay, I want to get on your waiting list. And I don't know, maybe that's a generator thing. Like, I always guide my students, like, if you have a vision, if this is going to be ready in 30 days, you should be selling it already. You should have a pre-sale price going.
No, you're totally right. I should. You're totally, and especially even as an MG, I should be going, like, this is what I'm creating. And that's a big thing with generators and MGs and manifestors too, of like, this is what I'm creating. And drawing them into that process of what you're creating.
You could even do like a pre-sale at a reduced cost, and then that gets you more excited, right? Because
oh my God, I love you.
It gets you more excited because now you're creating and people are actually waiting, which gives you that much more fire to you're doing it for someone now, like that's specifically waiting. So it helps you as the practitioner when you do that.
Totally.
To really, and then you respond to whatever it is they're asking, and you almost, because you could put a lot of work onto something and you don't know if it's gonna work and if people's gonna want it, and if you put your heart into something and then it kind of just flops, you might experience a little bit of like defeat, and it's kind of hard to get up from that sometimes. Like it's not always easy. But then I'll finish and we'll wrap up how we started with this book I'm reading. The next quality of someone who outwits the devil, it's not necessarily just having the purpose, is looking at failure as just temporary setbacks. So there is no failure because you are so driven. Like if I were to make a list of all the things that haven't worked over the last 6 months, I mean, I guess other people might have just given up on this online thing because it's not as easy as it sounds, right?
Yeah.
But that don't even cross my mind. Like I'm just like, I'm online now. This is how I'm gonna do it. And when I get my students at the end of the 90 days and I see their faces and they come to me with all of their, I'm like, this is it. This is why I do it. This is why I can't stop. This is why I can't just like do something else. This is what needs to be done. And so even if you create something, and this goes for everyone out there, even if you are following your intuition and you create something and it doesn't actually work out, if you're coming from a place of service and you're coming from a place of giving, the one or two people you reached will benefit from this. And don't feel deflated by it, and definitely don't give up. Just pivot and find whatever's next. Learn the lessons you needed to learn about what works externally, but also about what you might have done wrong internally that wasn't fully aligned with your purpose and your spirit. And if you're aligned with your spirit, your business is successful. It's not personal. It's not it's the only outcome possible. Right?
Yeah.
And if you're not aligned with your spirit and you're doing something because you think it'll work or just to make the money without really serving with just what's in it for me,
yeah.
I'm not saying it's not going to be successful. I'm just going to say it's going to be a little bit harder.
It's going to be harder. It's going to be a lot harder.
A lot harder. The law of karma.
It's a lot harder. Trust me, I tried. I went down that path. It didn't go so well. I had to learn a lot of hard lessons.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of courage to put your heart and soul out there and to get in front of people and share what you love. And it's scary for some. But if you're worried about that, you're being a little bit selfish and maybe a little bit egotistic because you're focused on what people think of you and you're focused on what you're going to get from it. And that's going to stop the flow in energy. Who cares? Some are going to love you, some are not going to love you. Can you still give out and give with all your heart, everything you have to offer? And if you do that, people will sense that. That's what they're buying into, right? And that's what will make you successful. So whatever you 100%. Do, follow your heart. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Bottom line. I love it. Exactly.
Thank you so much for joining us, Rachel.
Thank you, Sarah.
So grateful to have you here. You have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Hit replay if you watch the replay and ask any questions you might have on the comments. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.